everyone, my name is Kelis and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is my first ever video essay and I love me a video essay. I love me a good old rant. I have always enjoyed like sociology, psychology and history, and I do a law degree. Okay, so those 4 facts can just build up in your mind how much I love a good rant, how much I love a good debate, how much I love a good theology. Okay, also I like philosophy as well. I know that I'll forever be learning in ways that I can enjoy. It's not ways every day I want to be writing like a 3,000 word essay like I'm doing in law right now. Okay, it's sometimes I just want to watch cutesy videos about topics. I want to know a bit about Aristotle. Sometimes I want to continue learning about Marx. Like, do you get what I mean? Sometimes it is just a simple cutesy topic, but sometimes I want to get into the nitty-gritty. Okay, so I'll forever be a learner and I love that, and that's why I'm making video essays, because the girl's got to know we've got to make a community over here because we all have much video essays, so let's start making some. Okay, let's just start making some because, like I said, I love me a good video essay. I love me a good video essay. Today's topic for my first video essay is a topic that I talk about a lot with actually one of my best friends, is why we as humans are our own enemies. And that is such a big topic, and maybe I might not even be able to cover all the points in this video. Yeah, I'm gonna say a few facts. I'm gonna say a bit of sociology in it, a bit of philosophy, a bit of psychology, you know, a bit of history. If I can include them all, I'm gonna try to get in there. Okay. The reason why I talk about this a lot is mainly in relation to politics. This is what kind of triggers me to say a sentence like that. But in the world today, we have a lot of different conflicts, and amongst these conflicts, we can see why we as humans are our own enemies, because during the conflicts, it's human versus human. A prime example of why humans are another human's enemy. One group can face so much hate and destruction from another group. And that's such a common example of why we as humans are our own enemies. But it doesn't necessarily explain, and this is what then I get to the nitty-gritty of my best friend about, and what I'm going to get in the nitty-gritty of the video. One sociological theory that I learned a lot about throughout my whole time doing sociology, I've done it in GCSE and I've done it in A-level, is functionalism. Functionalism is, I won't even say a neutral theory, it's the conservative out of sociology. And one thing every functionalist practically said throughout my whole course was there always needs to be a divide. There always needs to be a divide for society to run. Just like in crime, I said that there always needs to be crime for there to be punishment, and for there to be some people in prison, some people are not. In education, there always needs to be a divide. There always needs to be people that do the best and do the worst. In so many different areas of life, they always emphasize that there needs to be a divide. And this is the same within society itself. That's one thing it failed to mention. And this is exactly why I call it the conservative of sociology, because it wants to appear as if the division is caused by institutions of society, but no, it's caused by society itself. It's caused by humans itself, because we would not face a divide if we didn't cause the divide. We have mechanisms such as education and crime that cause the divide, but we have then caused them to cause the divide. We are then the people, like I said, we are the enemies of the other people. And it is kind of inevitable in society today, unfortunately, to always have a divide. And that has been something that has been created for so many centuries. From literal Norman days, there's always been a clear hierarchy, and this hierarchy will always somehow sustain within society. And even within now, let's say there's not as many monarchies nowadays, and for example, I live in the UK, and even though the monarchy is there, they don't hold as much rule as they used to. Like, I think when you mention the monarchy, everyone just kind of laughs because you don't really think of them having much power nowadays, but that still doesn't relate to anything. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. The fact that there's a status quo and the fact that there's a hierarchy in place already shows that there's a divide. And because businesses and corporations now just thrive on the divide. This is exactly why we as humans are our own enemies. It's a very important thing that, as being a citizen of the UK, that we understand how corporations within the UK, businesses within the UK thrive on the divide. Okay, and the main divide that's happening right now, is juicy, okay? And it's exactly why, again, I say, why we as humans are our biggest enemies. Big businesses or corporations are run by people, okay? So the people within these businesses and corporations have allowed a certain mentality to be ignited. It has allowed a certain mentality to be fused, okay? They have lighted the candle, okay? Because I don't want to show you that bit because it's like burnt as fuck. They have lighted the candle. They have ignited the spark. They have seen the consequences and they've still gone forward with their actions. We have been detrimented so many different ways because we did not realize that those innocent things that you would think were going against us did. Okay? Innocent little business, you wouldn't think that's working against you. Another reason why we as humans are our own enemies is because we glorify money. As a society, we glorify money, and on a level that is below the middle class, we glorify money for different reasons as to why the upper class glorify it. That's first and foremost, and that's also what the upper class wants. It is talked about so much within the theory of Marxism, but the bourgeoisie, the upper class, they always want the proletariat, the working class, to have this sense of false class consciousness. Oh, we are working class, but we work, we get money, so we can do this, we can do that. We have some sort of freedoms with our money, and that is exactly one of the ways that they create a divide. And that's actually, furthermore, one of the reasons why humans, again, are our own enemies. Because these humans that are part of the bourgeoisie, now that they've done that now that they've then made us have this false class consciousness and made us have this mindset that we are content with our lives because we get money to an extent and we get by and we go about things. They make us think that because then they are able to permit so much more to us, because even though we're content with our money, they're still going on. Oh, I'm content with my life, so why should I contend with the fact that what they're doing? The proletariat, no, why the bourgeoisie then love that is because they then know that proletariat people are content. They're doing what they're doing. So they are able to permit so much more. They're able to create more systems and more businesses and institutions that will continue to oppress the proletariat. And the proletariat will oppress to an extent, but because we're so content with our jobs, we're not going to risk the thought of protesting. We're not going to risk the point of going against society. We're not going to risk that because we're content with our little lives making the money. That's exactly what the bourgeoisie want in so many ways. Okay? And then why I link that to the topic of this essay is because they are so content with doing it. Greed and money is such a motivating factor for them. This is exactly why I say money is a different factor for the bourgeoisie compared to the proletariat, okay? You understand how money within the proletariat is motivated through work, through family life, through things like that. And you see how the bourgeoisie are motivated by money because of greed, are motivated by money because they can see how much they can capitalize off us, and see in so many ways how they can gain. One method is not enough. It's thousands of methods. It's trillions of methods, millions of methods. The proletariat in general are exploited in so many different ways we are still unconscious to knowing because it's not been revealed. Okay, there's so many different ways, and that's exactly why I begin with Marxism. Okay, I don't know Marxism to the fullest extent to declare myself a Marxist, but you could argue I am, which I could argue I am too, to an extent. And that's why I believe so heavily in that we as humans are our own enemies, because we're so driven by greed. And I'm saying this in a class debate, but I will move on to different debates as well, so do not worry. I'm not just going to be all Marxist for the whole video. But when you look at the facts, same way that the bourgeoisie are the enemy of the proletariat, any proletariat that dares to stand against the status quo and within different mind frames where a person from the proletariat tries to do different for themselves is a threat to the bourgeoisie. But what they do with that person is subjective to each person, because, you know, there's been many instances where people make businesses. They're cool. They go out into different avenues. They do what they have to do. Charities are still allowed to exist. Everything. So it's not to say that every proletariat would be oppressed. That whole divide. Such rich evidence of why we as humans are our enemies. Because on surface level, you could be in a room, there could be people from so many different classes. You could talk to them as normal. You could eat with them as normal, everything. But one of them is ready to sacrifice you, and one of them is ready to exploit you so much just to gain a bit more money, to gain a bit more greed. We lack compassion and we lack empathy in this modern day society, even regardless of that divide, which unfortunately some people are still yet to know about. They know about it to a surface where, again, the fourth class consciousness comes into effect. They literally say that with politics and everything, they say it's not a working class problem. Why do you think it is that so many working class people do not vote? I can name countless of reasons off my head. Why is the politics not taught enough? Furthermore, why is sociology not taught enough? But that's a different topic for a different day. But most importantly, why politics isn't spoken about enough amongst working classes? Because they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know the insights and the knowledge. They don't want you to actually go research what they're doing. And even if some of the proletariat know, including myself, they know that's not going to cause an impact. Literally, Marxism states the only way to overcome capitalism is for everyone to wake up. And that's not being shown. It's literally not. So, how that's going to happen, I literally don't know. I don't know. But that's just one of the reasons why I personally believe humans are our own enemies. Because some of us, not including me, will go our own way and exploit, and just because we're greedy, we will do so much to detriment other people, not just one person, to detriment a whole group of people for the sake of just a bit more money, for the sake of a bit more land, okay? For the sake to go on a flimsy trip to space, to just be out of the Earth's orbit and then to come back down. Crazy. So crazy. But some people can counter that, you know. You can counter this divide and say that, like I said, charities still cease to exist. You have multiple organisations. You have non-governmental organisations. You have powers like the UN, which I say the UN with such light-heartedness. I study law, so I can bring in my law to this, okay? I'm literally writing an essay about it right now. How is international law really law, okay? And that's a topic that maybe is completely diverting from the point. But what you mainly need to know is these international organizations also capitalize this divide too. These international organizations are run by the elite. They're run by the US, the UK, France, China, and Russia. Okay, I can't say Spain. Don't know why I was going to say Spain. Russia. 5 countries. And you think that the UN is going to help us. You think the UN is going to cause cooperation around the world, cause peace. Those 5 countries are literally the embodiment of why humans are our own enemies. If we want to talk about it on a different level, if we want to talk about it looking at how the divide is not just domestic, it's also global, then again, you can be shown in so many different ways that humans are our own enemies. How, like I said at the start of this video, wars are still able to be committed and permitted in this day and age, and nothing has been able to stop it, and nothing will be able to stop this precise moment, purely because we as humans are our own enemies. We have set systems up that permit nothing, that exhibit nothing. We have created the United Nations that have extorted no sort of result. We as humans, because of greed, are motivated by factors that create hate and create war and create lack of freedom, create torture. We as humans are our own enemies. I know I'm just going back and forth with my points, and I know it leads back to my question, but it's because my question is valid. It's because my question can be spoken about so many different ways. Okay, you can counter the point of the divide, like I said, with institutions of law, with non-governmental organizations, okay, with charities. But could you sit there and say that they have combated the divide? Could you sit there and say that there's no working against these charities from existing? I know part of my human rights work that I want to do in the future is create charities. But do I also know that the divide will still persist? But do I also know that the divide will also still be in place? Okay? And me, as a woman of God, has to push for her faith and push through all her fears to do that. Yes, I do know that. It's given. It's a given. But that's my first point about how Marxism is a sociological theory that embodies and fulfills the question of why humans are our own enemies. And it explains this by demonstrating the divide and demonstrating how we as humans are motivated by actions such as greed. And due to materialistic things such as money, we are willing to exploit and destroy a lot of humans, groups of humans, individual humans. We're willing to do that purely because of Marxism. Okay? Second point, okay, if we're talking about this on a relative scale, is why humans are our own enemies. We're going to talk about social media, okay? I'm going to just give you a bit of context to me, okay? I have been bullied. I've had comments. Okay, I'm a mixed race girl. I'm bigger. I am outspoken. I'm bound to have things said to me. Okay, and I'm bound to have gone through experiences. Yet, what was conveyed as my beauty standards throughout my whole life? Why they sit on the internet cry and say that they've been hated on? Why is some of the most prettiest people I've ever seen, or some of the most funniest people I've ever watched, why are they still calling out for people to stop calling hate? It's the fact that we as humans are our own enemies because we are never satisfied. We permit a standard that is never ever enough. We permit a standard that is constantly changed, it's constantly rewritten. The narrative always is that we should be inclusive and that we appeal to everyone and that we as humans should not judge. We should spread kindness. But it's a narrative that is not followed. It's a standard that is never upkept. One thing I can say about social media is I wish, cancel culture would permit. I wish that when certain people who receive hate due to actions they've done, I wish that would permit. But even then, that's not fulfilled. How many American TikTokers do I know that have said the N-word barefaced on the camera? Why have they still got so many followers? Why is it that the hate only persists for so long for people that have actually done wrong compared to the hate that persists for people who just want to be themselves? We as humans, like I said, are never satisfied, and we always permit a standard that's never upkept. And this also links back to all of our insecurities and all of our traumas, because we then permit this stand onto other people and reflect onto other people, because truly it's what we want for ourselves. Like they say, life is a mirror sometimes. We are constantly putting out this stand onto other people because we actually expect that of ourselves, but we'd rather boost our ego and satisfy our pride in making someone else do it and ridiculing them for all the things and all the faults that they have along that journey of being the somewhat standard that we want for them. But then we ourselves are ignoring our faults, ignoring our flaws, never addressing them, never healing from them. And just projecting. I know a lot of projectors. I've dealt with a lot of projectors in my life. And in this life, projecting will only bring you farther from the truth. Projecting will only bring you farther from healing. If you have a void, projecting is not going to solve it. Solving that takes a deeper look within yourself, and it's actually one way you can help permit this problem of why we as humans are our own enemies. Is because when you're constantly ridiculing parts of yourself, like I said, you're choosing to project onto other people, and you don't know how much hate someone can take. Like, because we constantly continue to set the standard for people we don't even know. We have no recollection. It's the parasocialness of this world. It's the fact that we can imagine us to be on a level with people we see, and we can imagine ourselves being similar because of personality traits, that we then put ourselves on this pedestal and think that because in a normal world, if we was to meet this person, we could possibly be friends with them or whatever, we can then all of a sudden put ourselves on this pedestal to treat them how we want to. Just because there can be any similarity doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that as a society we should just keep projecting. You know, we as humans are our own enemies because we set such a standard that we know we'll never be able to fulfill. We do that for ourselves, and then we project this onto others. High standards, perfectionism, whatever you want to call it. This problem will always persist, and this problem will always make hate and will always create divide, because if we are not solving things within ourselves, we then expect others to solve them. And if they don't even know what they need to solve, nothing's going to be solved. Nothing. And I think it's also true to say that with social media, there has been a lot more uproar in insecurities in general. Okay, like I said again, we as humans will never be satisfied. We'll always seem to create standards for ourselves or for others that no one will be able to fulfill. It's the fact that once every so often, for guys, I've noticed the new haircut trend. It will change, okay? Once in a while, it will be a new trend. It'll be that guys have to have this hairstyle to be attractive, okay? I'm not being an advocate for men right now. I'm just saying one example that came to my mind. I think it's actually pathetic how just because someone has a preference, everyone has to have that preference, and then everyone has to have that standard over themselves. I think it's so pathetic. I think we do not embrace individuality, and it's exactly why we as humans are our own enemies, because we preach that we should be kind, but no one's kind to the person that's authentic. No one's kind to the person that wants to be themselves. No one's kind to the person that wants to actually do what they want, dress how they want, eat how they want, look how they want, act how they want. Like I said, cancel culture should permit. There should be certain people that are not deemed acceptable of anything because of how they act. Okay, it's not a token for you to act racist. It's not a token for you to act homophobic. It's not a token for any of that. That should be combated against. But the problem is that doesn't get combated against. But oh, she's a bit fat. Let's go in on her. Let's go in. Oh, he's not a dreadhead. Let's go in. Let's go in. Don't you see how that's crazy? How we as humans are enemies, because instead of solving problems that need to be solved, instead of actually doing what Jaden Smith told us to look at the economic state of the world, the socio-economic state of the world, we are too busy hating on people for such insecure reasons, for such pathetic reasons. We are looking at such little, minuscule things. That's literally what we're doing. Like, this is why we as humans are our own enemies, because we actually look at the most minuscule things and we make that such a problem, but the bigger things in life we're not solving. So we as humans are our own enemies because we're not looking to the bigger pictures, we're looking to the smaller pictures, and with the smaller pictures we're getting such a magnifying glass into you would think a plus-sized woman was committing a crime. Because we're investing so much time into her life, into everything, into picking apart her so much, you would have thought that she would have called me the N-word up front. The things don't coincide, and if people want to counter that point of social media and beauty standards, I'd like to hear it, because in my mind there is no counterpart to that. Social media is such a big tool of why we as humans are our own enemies. And again, to link back to my first point, the divide loves that. But if you don't want to have that conversation, I'll stop the Marxism stuff. But yeah. So second point is social media. It's one of the reasons why we as humans are our biggest enemies, because we magnify into issues that aren't as deep. and we do not highlight bigger issues and social structures that should actually be dealt with. Social media has given us the chance to pinpoint such small things instead of dealing with ourselves and healing, and social media has emphasized projection on such a different level, emphasized it. We as humans now don't deal with insecurities, we just project them. And this is exactly why we as humans are our enemies, because we have not got the willpower to help ourselves. So then we're not going to help anyone else. We're going to cause destruction for everyone else. We're going to cause insecurities for everyone else. We're going to hate on everyone else. Crazy, crazy, crazy. My third point for why we as humans are our own enemies is again linked back to politics, because I'm a political babe. Cannot help that. I personally believe that we have overlooked colonialism. I think we have. I think not just from the perspective of a person of colour, and not just as a perspective from a black perspective as well, may I just add. We overlooked colonialism. We overlooked it so hard. We overlooked it. Personally, we have chosen to accept colonialism in our daily life, and that's why we as humans are our own enemies, because we took the active decision to ignore the long-term impacts, to ignore the scale of colonialism. We then decided to move on like it was our decision to make. Like we were in the same shoes of people who'd been colonialized. Like we are in the countries that have been colonialized. The Western society decided to move on, so everyone decided to move on. And obviously, I'm not subjectively saying everyone. What I'm saying is we then did not recall back on that. The thing is, like I said, I love learning, so I take it upon myself to teach myself these things. But it's not collective norm. It's not collective norm. You know what the thing is? If you was to ask anyone what the biggest genocide is, everyone would say the Holocaust. Oh my gosh, everyone would say the Holocaust. Okay, and may I just preface again, when I say everyone, obviously I don't mean everyone, I'm just saying as a collective term. When you was to ask someone what the biggest genocide was, what the biggest genocide is, everyone would say the Holocaust. Everyone. That's exactly my point. We ignore colonialism. To think that colonialism literally started back in the 1400s from Portugal, okay? 1500s it was, right? No, 1400s actually, sorry. Started over 600 years ago, and you're trying to tell me the Holocaust was the biggest genocide. We tend to ignore big things such as colonialism. Big things. It's not even a thing, it's a concept. It's a movement. Colonialism was a movement. Still is a movement, because I know, and it's so clearly evidenced, that colonialism still impacts countries to this day. Not all countries are independent, first and foremost. And most countries, from my knowledge, that are independent are not fully independent. The thing is, can you ever be truly fully independent in this society? With the divide, can you truly ever fully be independent? Can you? Because when you look at civil wars in countries that all of a sudden they became independent, but now they've got a civil war going on for 10 years. Can you say that that is their own fault? No, it isn't, because they've just become a state. They've just become a country. Who thrives in chaos and divide? Is within countries linked to colonialism. The fact of the matter is, if we look at the crisis in Congo right now, for example, okay, I can tell you that links to colonialism. I can tell you for a fact it links to colonialism. Colonialism has been dismissed. It's never faced reparations. The question that could hinder this argument is, how do we repay? And that is a question that has so many different answers. I've heard so many different perspectives from people when that question is asked. It is a perplexing question. It's a complex question, because when you actually calculate the effects of colonialism, because like I said, it is that big, you cannot scale the repayment. That is my answer. If I can't even begin to imagine the scale of repayment, but imagine the amount of countries that deserve repayment. Imagine the amount of countries that are still being affected to colonialism to this day, because colonialism also impacts political systems. Why is it that every African country that has tried to move away from colonial aspects, why something always happens to their leader? Why is it that when colonialism is seemed to be ceased to exist and now every country's independent, but when they're trying to do independent things, bad boy moves, when they're trying to uplift the country, that's when something bad happens? Another reason as to why we as humans are our own enemies, because we truly will not let people be to themselves. We will truly, I'm saying we, the people with colonialism, will truly not let the country cease to exist. Will truly not let them cease to exist on their own means. It will not let them uplift themselves in the way that they want to uplift themselves. We are the ones that went to Africa. Africa didn't come to us. We are the ones that took. We're the ones that continue to take. Africa doesn't want anything more from us. Yeah, some countries may still have deals going on with westernized countries and everything, but they want to be left alone. The people want the country to themselves. Same way that every other country is to themselves the Western nation, but Africa can't have the same after the colonialism. What parts of Asia can't have the same because of colonialism? Latin America, South America. Do I go on? Colonialism is the biggest thing as to why I could argue as to why we as humans are our own enemies. Because we'll never be able to repay the scale of colonialism. One of the biggest man-made, human-made blunders, one of the biggest man-made, human-made catastrophes in mankind. We will never be able to pay back the scale of that. We will never be able to repay that in any sort of way. And the things that we can do in the society today to abstain from colonialism being involved with any other country, no one's doing. Everyone is sitting back and allowing things to happen. Everyone is taking things as face value, taking things as problems that are persistent within countries that were broadcasted, seeing it as problems that the country caused. Colonial impact, colonial after effects, colonial consequences are the reasons why the crises are still permeating today, are the reasons why we as humans are our own enemies, because we're choosing to ignore that fact for the comfort of not being able to deal with the catastrophes, for not being able to deal with reparations that came with colonialism. One final point that I want to talk about today in why we as humans are our own enemies is the lack of empathy, okay? And this doesn't really have any relation to any of the topics I said that I love, because this is just my opinion. And is one thing that me and my best friend also talk about a lot is the lack of empathy, and how by the grace of God I've been uplifted by parents that have taught me empathy, and I'm a very empathetic person. It's a trait that people actually say a lot, so it's not even me just being like, oh, I'm empathetic. Like, people have told me that many times, and it's a natural thing. It's not a performative thing. And there's too much performative empathy, may I just say, for one. Okay, Black Lives Matter being one. Sorry, why were people painting their faces? Why was a racist I know posting the black screen? Ooh, you provoked all your racism, because that's why I'm whipping my candle. But like, whoa, and what? Because you painted your whole face black, or you painted a fist on your side cheek, you think you're being empathetic? May I just say my definition of empathy? No. My definition of empathy is showing a genuine feeling towards other people because of their circumstances, because of the situation in general, because you care about humans in general and other living creatures and other living creatures, because you can also have empathy to an animal. I get sad about dog videos. Okay? Because we lack that. We lack the care. We lack the understanding. We lack the wanting and the knowledge of other people's circumstances and situations. Because we lack the feelings towards some certain situations, we have dismissed people in times of need. We have chosen to be selfish in ways that are not conventionally okay, in ways that are not small scale. Due to a lack of empathy, we have created this bystander awareness, which is a big thing that I dislike so heavily. How as a society we'd rather watch than intervene. Would rather say we care behind their back, but to their face we show no sort of remorse. We'd like to say that we have compassion, but show no compassion. See how it's performative. See how it's saying instead of doing. We as humans are our own enemies because we would rather put on a face than act. We as humans are our own enemies because instead of doing anything about it, we'd rather act like we're doing things to satisfy ourselves, to satisfy our egos. And we would never ever truly put ourselves in other people's shoes. As the saying goes, put yourself in their shoes, how would you feel? A lot of humans just take the seat back and just don't. Like, it's so quick to do that. You're so quick to do that. You're so comfortable with doing that. You're so okay with doing that. And that again, that whole concept is cause... Sorry, I've got like an itchy nose. We as humans are doing that, like I said, because of many different reasons. One is the divide, for sure, because the bourgeoisie as well want us to be complicit with what they're doing. If we're content with our thing, we're going to allow them to do their thing, okay? Just because we've got our life and we're content with whatever we've got, we don't care what else goes on around the world because we've got our own problems to sort out. They're so fine with that narrative. They're so fine with humans having no empathy with other humans because the bourgeoisie overboards us so many problems. They'd rather us have to deal with all the problems that they give us so that we don't have to worry about anyone else's problems. Truly, empathy is in the ruins. It's in the midst. It's in the cease to exist because as a person that has been through different experiences, right, and different experiences I've been through, you truly don't feel that much empathy in situations that you really think you should. Empathy as well, like I said, it can be so performative because I can just tell, it's so obvious. And leading back to the bystander point I made earlier, I truly believe that social media is also a tool as to why we have no empathy because we are desensitized to content that provokes empathy. We are also so quick to be praised if we do the slightest small thing of empathy. Be like, oh, like, you know, like, let me hit repost on this post. Let me like it. Let me comment a heart. We're so praised, yet when on a global scale, we are ignoring people. We are ignoring cries for help. Oh, it's okay. You've got your own things. Too deep to worry about it. Where is your empathy? Where is your actual empathy? Because genuinely, empathy is so complex, and empathy is something we should feel naturally in our human bodies. But because we as humans are our own enemies, we lack empathy. Because we're so worried and we're so concerned with hate and divide and greed, we lack empathy. Because it's not coming as a natural feeling to people much anymore. We're not concerned with getting it back. We're content with the lack. That's exactly why I believe we as humans are our enemies, because we are content with the lack of empathy in the world these days. We are so content with it that we're letting it cease to exist. I don't fully believe that empathy will ever fully go, because I'm still here. Guys, I can't believe I said that. But empathy is going. It's lacking. It is not a global response. It is not a big topic that is displayed much anymore. It's not a big topic that is emphasized anymore. It is genuinely, it's in the ruins. Empathy, it's not being shown as often. Empathy is not always being portrayed. And that's one of the reasons why we as humans are our enemies. If you like this video, thank you as well for watching the way through. Comment any more ideas of what you want me to do. I have a lot of different topics in my head that I want to do for my video essays, because I talk about them a lot, and plus, like, I love to waffle like this, and I guess I'm passionate. But if you have any other suggestions, please do let me know, and everything. And if you like this video as well, don't forget to hit subscribe, because you'll see more content from me. And I love you all. God bless you all, and have a good day or night or whatever time span this is, and try to do more, because we as humans, we do not want to be our own enemies. I believe that if you're watching this, you do not want to be your own enemy. You don't want to be the enemy of the humans, and we as humans need to stick together and create better for this world, okay? One step at a time. So yeah, so remember. Anyways, I love you all. Goodbye.